The modern world is not a civilization, but a high-tech feedlot designed to extract biological energy from a compliant population. And the terrifying reality is that you are not the customer of this system, but the livestock. You have been raised on the myth that consumerism is an economic model based on the freedom of choice, where businesses compete to serve your needs. But the architect looks at the flashing screens and the endless aisles of plastic garbage and sees a sophisticated machinery of extraction that mines your dopamine, harvests your attention, and drains your life force until you are too exhausted to question your cage. The entire structure of the global economy is predicated on the manufactured void, a psychological operation that deliberately instills a deep sense of inadequacy in you from the moment you are born, convincing you that you are incomplete, ugly, slow, and worthless unless you purchase the external prosthetic identity that is being sold to you at a markup. The soft men walk through life with a gaping hole in their soul, trying to fill it with the latest iPhone, the luxury car, and the designer clothes, never realizing that the hunger they feel is not natural, it is engineered. The system does not want you to be satisfied, because a satisfied man stops spending, and a man who stops spending is a battery that has stopped providing current to the matrix. Therefore, the primary function of advertising, media, and culture is to keep you in a state of permanent, low-level anxiety, a psychological itch that can only be scratched by swiping a credit card. You must understand the mechanics of planned obsolescence, not just of the products you buy, but of your own self-worth. Corporations openly design products to break after 2 years, so you must replace them. But the more insidious weapon is perceived obsolescence, where they manipulate social trends to make you feel ashamed of owning perfectly functional items simply because they are last season. This is a weaponized social hierarchy where your status is determined not by your character, your strength, or your intellect, but by the recency of your consumption. The soft man is terrified of being seen with an old phone or driving an old car because his entire identity is leased from the brands he consumes. He has no internal core, so he must constantly purchase new skins to cover his nakedness. This traps him in the earn-spend cycle, a hamster wheel, where he trades his limited biological time on this earth, his only true non-renewable resource, for mass-produced trinkets that end up in a landfill. Every time you buy something, you do not need to impress people you do not like. You are literally trading a slice of your life for a piece of plastic. You are converting your blood and sweat into corporate profit. This is the definition of being food. The system eats your time and excretes money for the shareholders. The ultimate tragedy is that this consumption does not even produce happiness. It produces dopamine spikes, followed by a crash. It is a biological hack. The system has studied your neurology better than you have. They know exactly which colors, sounds, and notifications trigger the reward centers of your primate brain. They have gamified your existence to turn you into a Pavlovian dog that salivates when the Amazon package arrives. The architect rejects this biological hacking. You must realize that in this game, there are only 2 positions on the board. You are either the asset or the food. The asset is the producer, the creator, the owner who builds the systems, sells the products, and collects the rent. The food is the consumer, the user, the employee who works to buy the products and pay the rent. The soft men are obsessed with lifestyle, which is a trap word for high-volume consumption. They work harder to buy a bigger house, which requires more furniture, which requires more energy, which requires more cleaners, which requires more income, forcing them to work even harder. They are building their own prison cells and paying for the bricks. The architect chooses minimalism, not because he is poor, but because he is strategic. By refusing to consume, you cut the fuel line to the machine. You reclaim your time. You stop being a battery for someone else's empire and start directing that energy into building your own. You must look at every dollar not as a token to be spent, but as a soldier to be deployed. If you spend it on a toy, you have killed the soldier. If you invest it in an asset, you have recruited the soldier to work for you forever. The farm is designed to keep you fat, distracted, and dependent. The gate is open, but you will never leave as long as you are addicted to the feed. The second layer of the biological farm is the systematic harvesting of your cognitive energy through the weaponization of dopamine, a neurochemical hijack that transforms sovereign human beings into drooling addicts tethered to glowing rectangles. You believe that you are the master of your device because you paid $1,000 for it, but in reality, you are carrying a digital parasite in your pocket that is programmed to extract the most valuable resource you possess, your attention, and sell it to the highest bidder. The soft men walk through life in a state of continuous partial attention, their heads bent down in submission to the screen, scrolling mindlessly through an infinite feed of triviality while the world burns around them. They think they are staying connected, but they are actually being mined. The Silicon Silicon Valley overlords have explicitly designed these platforms using the principles of the Skinner box, utilizing variable reward schedules, the same psychological mechanic used in slot machines, to keep you pulling the lever. Every time you pull down to refresh your email, your Instagram, or your newsfeed, you are spinning the wheel, hoping for a hit of social validation or a spark of outrage. Most of the time you get nothing, which creates anxiety, but sometimes you get a like or a shocking headline, which releases dopamine. This unpredictability is what creates the addiction. It rewires your neural pathways to crave the stimulus, destroying your ability to tolerate boredom, silence, or deep thought. The system is not trying to entertain you. It is trying to fragment your consciousness so that you become incapable of the sustained focus required to threaten the status quo. You must understand the economic brutality of the phrase, if the product is free, you are the product. This is too soft. In the attention economy, you are not just the product, you are the carcass. Your behavioral data, your location, your fears, and your desires are stripped from you in real time and fed into predictive algorithms that are designed to manipulate your future choices. The soft men defend their addiction by claiming it helps them unwind, failing to realize that the content they are consuming is carefully engineered to trigger feelings of inadequacy, envy, and tribal rage, keeping their cortisol levels high and their wallets open. A man who is angry or jealous is a man who buys things to soothe the pain. A man who is at peace is a man who is bad for the GDP. The algorithm is a supercomputer playing chess against your primitive monkey brain, and it is winning every single day. It knows exactly what video will keep you up at 2 a.m. It knows exactly what political trigger will make you comment, and it knows exactly what product you are most likely to buy when you are feeling lonely. This is cognitive warfare. They are carpet bombing your mind with information shrapnel to ensure you never have the mental bandwidth to build your own empire. The architect recognizes that focus is the new oil. In a world of distracted zombies, the man who can sit in a room for 4 hours and work on a single task without checking his phone is a superpower. He is a god among insects. To escape the farm, you must declare war on the notification. A notification is an unsolicited demand for your attention. It is a stranger walking into your house and slapping you in the face. The architect sterilizes his digital environment. You turn off all non-essential notifications. You put your phone in grayscale mode to strip away the candy-colored visual cues that trigger the primate brain. You practice dopamine fasting to reset your baseline sensitivity, allowing you to find pleasure in hard work and slow progress rather than needing the instant gratification of a digital hit. You treat your attention like a fortress. Nothing gets in unless you lower the drawbridge. The soft man responds to every ping like a trained dog. The architect decides when he is available. You must realize that every minute you spend doom scrolling is a minute of your life that has been stolen by a corporation that hates you. They are monetizing your procrastination. They are getting rich off your inability to govern your own mind. To be free, you must cut the digital umbilical cord and reclaim the sovereignty of your own thoughts. The only way to escape the biological farm is to undergo a violent psychological inversion where you fundamentally change your relationship with value, transitioning from a passive consumer who exchanges life for pleasure to an active producer who exchanges energy for equity. The soft men operate on a deficit model where they view their income as a permission slip to buy things, constantly draining their reservoir to zero or below in a desperate attempt to signal status to a tribe that does not care about them. The architect operates on a surplus model, viewing income as seed corn that must never be eaten but rather planted to grow a harvest of freedom. You must realize that every dollar you hand over to a corporation for a piece of mass-produced plastic is a vote for your own enslavement. You are literally funding the very system that is designing the algorithms to addict your children and the policies to tax your labor. To break free, you must adopt strategic austerity, not out of poverty, but out of a warrior's discipline. You strip your life down to the essentials, cutting the fat, the subscriptions, the leases, and the luxury goods, not to suffer, but to lower your burn rate to the point where you become unkillable. A man who needs $10,000 a month to maintain his lifestyle is a slave to his job, his boss, and the economy. A man who has engineered his life to run on $2,000 a month while earning $10,000 is a dangerous anomaly because he cannot be coerced, he cannot be bribed, and he cannot be threatened with unemployment. This delta between your income and your expenses is your escape velocity. It is the raw capital you use to buy your freedom. The producer mindset requires you to find your dopamine not in the intake of goods, but in the output of value. The soft men are addicted to the input loop watching movies, playing video games, eating processed food, scrolling feeds. They are energetic black holes. The architect thrives in the output loop, writing code, building businesses, lifting weights, solving problems, creating art. You must understand that consumption is entropy. It is the destruction of order. Creation is negentropy. It is the imposition of order upon chaos. When you create, you become a mini-god of your own universe, and the satisfaction derived from building a revenue stream or a strong body is infinitely deeper and more sustainable than the fleeting sugar rush of buying a new watch. You must look at the tools of the system, the internet, the banking rails, the social networks, not as toys for your amusement, but as weapons for your arsenal. You use their platforms to sell your products, not to consume their propaganda. You use their debt to buy cash-flowing assets, not to finance a vacation. You use their technology to automate your labor, not to distract your mind. You are essentially a double agent, operating within the matrix, but refusing to plug into its power grid, using its own infrastructure to tunnel your way out. Ultimately, the goal is not status, which is a leash put on you by society to keep you behaving within the acceptable parameters of the herd, but sovereignty, which is the absolute power to say no. The soft men chase status money, the big house, the flashy car, the designer logos, which actually makes them more dependent on the system because high status is expensive to maintain and fragile to lose. The architect chases fuck you money, invisible, liquid, and boring assets that generate cash flow while he sleeps. When you have fuck you money, you do not need to laugh at the boss's bad jokes, you do not need to compromise your ethics for a paycheck, and you do not need to fear the cancellation of the mob. You walk through the world with the quiet confidence of a man who keeps a loaded gun in his waistband. You are polite, but you are not harmless. The escape from the biological farm is not a physical location. It is a financial and psychological state where you have accumulated enough resources to opt out of the game entirely. You stop running the race. You step off the track. You watch the other rats running in circles, fighting for crumbs, while you sit in the stands, owning the stadium. You have transitioned from the livestock that is fed to the slaughter, to the architect who designs the farm. This is the only victory that matters.